Hare Krishna.
Just want to make one special announcement since we have a second that we can give the congratulations to growing the Prema Das. He took his second initiation.
Is that the right thing? Let's see if it works.
Is this broadcast also the same live?
Yeah. What is it? She puts it on YouTube and Facebook. I think it's one.
Is it one?
No. One's two. Put the green. I'm just connecting.
I have one indeed. All right, do you want me to go get mine?
Sure.
Sorry about that.
Hare Krishna. Two, it's not it. Nothing.
She hasn't done this. What's new in San Diego?
New in San Diego? Well, when's the last time you've been there?
I haven't been. I've never been.
Oh, you never
I thought
been.
maybe something might be coming up.
Oh, okay. New in San Diego.
Or what's old in San Diego. You can tell us a little bit about how the temple came.
Okay. Yeah, the temple, I live at the temple on Pacific Beach, which is just about 2 blocks from the beach, Pacific Beach. And the temple's been there since 1977. It used to be a Elks Lodge. Anyone been to Elks Lodge here before? What do they do at Elks Lodge? Is drink, drink.
Drink and eat meat.
Okay, drink and eat meat, all right. Elks Lodge. And it used to be like an army, base. They used to keep a bunch of supplies there. So the devotees, they got it in 1977, and they made a temple, and it's very beautiful. The inside, they did a lot of wonderful work, artwork. We'll show you some pictures later. So yeah, it's been there since 77. It's a very beautiful temple on the beach. So you're welcome to come whenever you like.
Yes.
Okay.
How do we just so one picture shown? Okay.
There you go.
All right, there you go. All right, it worked so far, but it's working, so we'll see. Is the TV at a good angle for everybody?
Yeah.
Is it a good angle for everybody?
Yes.
All right, as long as you're happy. All right, let me just, so, all right. So does anyone know what this picture is here?
Disneyland.
Disneyland, right? It's the happiest place in the world. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I from my humble obeisances unto him. So this is Disneyland, and the title of this presentation is titled "How Walt Disney Ruined Our Love Lives." The myth of happily ever after. So, Walt Disney, creative fellow, he actually took a lot of very dark or intense stories that were meant to be cautionary tales. Most of them are like that, actually. And he just like flipped them. And they're very happy-go-lucky. Everything's good for the most part. I mean, there's some little hiccups in the storyline, but at the end, they live happily ever after the end. Right? There's no idea of what happened after that. So it's interesting because, again, the tales were meant to be cautionary tales. In other words, life has issues, life has problems, life has obstacles. It's not that one cannot be happy. One can be happy in life, but there's obstacles. We see that practically. But these tales, he flipped them around. And therefore, kids growing up watching these things, they developed a certain worldview, which you could say in many ways is unrealistic. So we'll get into, let's see here. All right, so that's the title, so don't be scared of the title. All right, so there's Mr. Disney. What does it say there? Kirtaneshwar?
I love Mickey Mouse more than any other woman I have ever known.
Yeah. So, interesting comment from Mr. Disney, right? And it's interesting because, I mean, sometimes people, they love like fictional, like Mickey Mouse or any of these different characters. I mean, it's completely fictitious. It's, it's imagination, it's made up. And to love or have affection for something that's completely fictional over humans, over humans, real life humans, it's a very interesting mindset. Now, of course, this presentation, the presentation is not about Walt Disney and just critiquing him. I know people are into that, but some people. But that's not what this presentation is about. These are just some introductory points. We will get into some other things. A particular story that he flipped, and we'll talk about the Krishna conscious or the spiritual point of view of that story. All right. Anyone went there before? Not yet. Paris, France, 1482. So that's the beginning of this story. Europe. There's a site of the city. Got a gargoyle up there, protecting things. So it happens in the church, so Notre Dame Church. This particular story takes place there. There's so many beautiful churches actually in Europe, but you got some more church scenes. So it's Frollo. Does anyone know? I'm sure you know what this story is, right? What story is this? Yeah. Hunchback of Notre Dame. So Frollo, he is a priest. He's a priest living in the church. And he has a son. It's like his son. It's actually orphan. He was dropped off in front of the church. And Frollo, he adopted him. And when you're living in the church or when you're living in the temple, people expect those people to be spiritually minded people, seriously engaged in spiritual life, having some relationship with God, having some relationship in which they're experiencing a lot of spiritual happiness. And they're not really meant to be so absorbed, or really at all, in hypocrisy or quarrel or any of the kind of mundane things that you see in the world. You know, the general vices that people are attached to. They're meant to be high-minded people, setting a good example for rest of society. But sometimes, especially in this age, there's a lot of quarrel, there's a lot of hypocrisy, there's a lot of illusion amongst leaders of religion. That's why a lot of people hate religion, or some people. They hate religion because of the hypocrisy found in it. So Frollo, he wasn't, he's not depicted as someone who's very high-minded. He's a bit absorbed in the externals. Like our teacher, one of our teachers, Rupa Goswami, he says, Atyahara priyasascha prajalpa niyamagraha janasangashilalam cha shadir bhakti vinashyati. Vinashyati. Vinashyati means to destroy. So these 6 principles destroy any bhakti, any devotion to God, or devotional spiritual sentiments. These 6 principles, which we won't go through all of them, but one of them is niyamagraha. So niyamagraha could be broken into 2, agraha and agraha. So one meaning to engage in spiritual life, just really fall in the externals. Just, it's all about externals. It's I showed up. It's mechanical. It's mechanical without devotion. So that's one, mechanical bhakti. It's not really bhakti, but like a robot kind of. Of course, nowadays, there's more and more robots. Yeah, I'll get to that one. The other one, agraha, means to neglect the rules and regulations. So there's 2. One is to follow them mechanically, and the other is to neglect them completely. So you have like mechanical things, like robots. At least those of us that are of a particular age, we could remember when robots were just something in movies and books and stuff. There was no robots. It was just kind of far-flung idea, like maybe later, who knows? Probably not, though. Now we have robots, right, coming up. Some people are scared they might take over. But you can have a robot chant Hare Krishna. You could have a robot get the incense and offer it to a picture of Krishna. You can have a robot, what else? Cook, maybe? Bow down. So sometimes people in religion, they become very mechanical. And then they lose their happiness, the happiness of the soul, the happiness that they're feeling in relationship with God or with Krishna. They just lose it. And then they become very, they fall into illusion, and they fall into all types of, they fall in all types of traps. So Frollo was like that. He was a mechanical guy who got into trouble, which we'll get into in a moment. All right, so there they are, Quasimodo and Frollo, father-son relationship. All right, so now you have Captain Phobos, I believe that's how you say his name. He sees Esmeralda, love at first sight. So Phobos was a handsome lad in Paris, and Esmeralda was a young, beautiful girl. And not only Phobos was attracted to her, I mean, this Captain Phobos, but also Frollo was. And it wasn't, because sometimes people, they're like they ask a monk, or they ask like somebody who's taken monastic vows throughout their life, they're like, you like fall in love or something? Like, what are you supposed to do? You know, you're like a monk or like, but this particular, well, monks, they make the resolution that, you know, they're falling in love with Krishna, and they're just, you know, pretty much forgetting about any other relationships like that, just going for Krishna, going for God. But, and with that relationship, they have the happiness to sustain that. But when we talk about Phobos, or we talk about Frollo, they weren't falling in love. It was just a pure, like, lust, like exploitation thing. So they were all attracted to her, Phobos, Frollo. So, and there's Esmeralda. All right. There you go, right? We say French is the love language or whatever, right? Say that. So they're enjoying themselves in France. And Phobos and Esmeralda, they're together. And in the meantime, Frollo's becoming extremely envious, like really envious. And it's amazing how far envy could go. Envy could really turns into a really ugly thing. So Frollo was thinking, you know, I want Esmeralda for my own enjoyment. And Krishna talks about this in the Bhagavad Gita. He has that verse, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Bhajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Krodha Bijayate, right? What, anyone want to give the translation for that one?
When you contemplate on the sense objects, attachment develops. From attachment, kama, lust develops. Kama, from lust, anger.
Yeah. So contemplate the object of the senses. We want something, we want someone, we want whatever. So we contemplate, and then lust develops, and then from that it degrades into anger. Now this is all on the material side. This is not to say, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with here, but just clarify that there's no room for relationships or marriage or anything. There is room for that, but in those spiritually based relationships where Krishna is in the center, these things are put aside. Kama, krodha, lust, anger, all these things. So Phobos, Frollo, he's become extremely envious. And he was thinking, all right, let me kill him. So he's sharpening his knife here. And then he kills him. He kills Phobos, the person who took Esmeralda out of envy. And interesting enough is that he claimed that Esmeralda did it. So in other words, he what is it called? When you frame someone, he framed her. So he was envious. Hey, Phobos took Esmeralda. Okay, let me kill Phobos. He's a priest. Let me kill Phobos. And then even further, he framed her. He said, she did it. I didn't do it. And they believed her. They believed him. He was a priest, right? So it's interesting because, he's a priest. He's supposed to be someone connected to God. He's supposed to be experiencing all this higher happiness, right? Krishna talks about that in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Vishaya vinivartate nira hasya dehana rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva navartate. So param drishtva navartate. So that higher happiness. So he was supposed to be engaged in that, but he wasn't. So therefore, contemplation and lust and anger and envy and he did something really stupid. All right, so Phobos is dead. Okay. First. So then Quasimodo, because Frollo framed Esmeralda, was trying to frame Esmeralda, people were after her. They're going to punish her for killing that person. So Quasimodo, as a hero in the story, he saves her and he brings her to the church and he yells, sanctuary, sanctuary. In other words, police, you can't come here. This is a sanctuary, this is a church. She's here and you can't come here. So she was safe at that point. So you have Quasimodo there and Frollo, he's in a church, and Esmeralda. So Frollo, the priest, again, it's not that the fire of his desire is going down at all, increasing. So he's trying to, he's threatening her and, he wants to be in a relationship with her. So what happens is she, somehow or other, she is taken out of the church and she's actually executed for what she supposedly did. And so Phobos is gone now, Esmeralda's gone. Now Frollo's in the church with Quasimodo. Quasimodo is looking at Frollo, and Frollo's up in this big church, up in this big tower, and he saw Esmeralda get executed on the street, and he's laughing. And Quasimodo's seeing this, and it's like a father figure, but he's understanding this person's, this is just wrong. This person has completely lost his mind. So what does Quasimodo do? Does anyone want to push him? You saw the next one, right? He pushes him down. Oh, you didn't see it? Okay. You could guess, right? I guess it's a good logical next step, I guess, in the story. You can see how that's what Quasimodo would do. So Quasimodo pushed Frollo to his death. So now Phobos is gone, Frollo's gone, and Esmeralda's gone. So it's just left for Quasimodo. So Quasimodo, I mean, he he's just like devastated. Esmeralda's gone because he also had affection for Esmeralda. And from the story, it seemed that it was a bit more real rather than Phobos and Frollo. It was a bit more real. So he had affection for her. And what did he do? The story explains that he was so devastated. He was so just heartbroken. He just it says later on they just find his bones there by her grave. He just like just died there. So then he was gone. So like this, I mean, if you look at the Disney story, I mean, it's quite opposite. Everybody, happily ever after, the end. Right? That's the Disney version. But you see, the original one is quite different. And again, they're meant to be cautionary tales that there are real life situations. Selfishness does exist. Envy does exist. Greed does exist. All of these things exist. They're very real and they're very dangerous, actually. So yeah, Krishna talks about that in the Bhagavad Gita, the danger of these things. Apparently this looks like a Arabic Bhagavad Gita. So it's nice. I just like this picture, so I added it. Doesn't really have to do much with the presentation. If you read Bhagavad Gita, you get some good ideas. I guess we could come up with that. Lose your mind, yeah. So Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, the first step to get out of illusion, the first step to get out of this trap of being caught by all of these obstacles is to understand. You can guess what I'm going to say, right? We're not these bodies. Yes. Can you believe it? We're not these bodies. We're the soul. And as long as one is too engaged in the matter of looking after the cage of the body, then there's no question of getting out of the illusion. Of course, we take care of the body. We sleep properly and all of these other things. But there's also another mission going on. Not just the mission of bodily care, but there's also the mission of spiritual care, caring for our real self. We care for ourselves by getting a good Mercedes. Just joking. You can get a Mercedes if you want. It's okay. But nothing wrong with Mercedes, I think. Anyways. But just as you have the example that the body's like a cage and the soul's the bird, similarly you have the example that the body's like a car and the passenger is the soul. So it's moving the body around. So yeah, that's there too. All right. And desire is like a great fire, like we heard in this story. It's so intense, desire. It's amazing, actually, what people can do when their desires become very intense, either in a good sense or in a bad sense. It's very interesting. People whose desires are like mediocre or something, it's like they may not create a lot of good or they may not create a lot of bad in the world, but people whose desires are very strong, which they can become very strong, like an intense fire, they could really cause a lot of destruction or positive upliftment. So the idea is that Krishna consciousness, by training our consciousness, by becoming Krishna conscious, by taking shelter of the chanting, like we were just doing earlier. It will put out the fire of materialism in our heart, which is like a fire of anxiety, actually. Samsara, this fire, it will put that out. Instead of that fire, we'll have the fire of Krishna consciousness burning, and that fire will allow us to do many wonderful things. I like this picture too. She looks very peaceful with a burning newspaper. I think it's pretty artistic. Nice, good photo. And it's necessary to, could say, go on a, sometimes they call it like a news fast. News is there's news from India, there's news from China, there's news from America, it's overflowing information. So yeah, that's also to try to take a break from what we usually engage in and try to engage in something more spiritual. And therefore we have Wonder Bread. Now, Wonder Bread, if you didn't know, it is one of the most disliked food by Americans. I don't know, just that's terrible. Yeah. Now imagine you had Wonder Bread that was just stale, old stale Wonder Bread. Not only is it Wonder Bread, but it's stale Wonder Bread. Now, if that's all we have, then that's all we have. I mean, that's what we go for. That's what we have. You know, all right, I'm hungry. Okay, that's all we have. So, stale Wonder Bread. But if we're given something much better, then we'll naturally go for that. That's just common sense. So here you have something better. You have your homegrown avocados and tomatoes and whatever home rolled tortillas. Much better. It's superior. It's nicer.
This is your cooking.
His cooking. No, it's not like it. So similarly with Krishna consciousness, when we advance more in Krishna consciousness, all of these other things become less interested and like stale. Becomes like stale. We don't really want much to do with it, or we don't really want anything to do with it. But we want the naturally better thing, which is Krishna consciousness. So that'll rest on chanting Hare Krishna. We have our beads here. It's a very powerful method. Those of you who know it, chant and engage in that method, and those who aren't so familiar, we have beads available, and we engage in nice kirtan, chanting, dancing, and ecstatic Krishna consciousness. And this elevates us and gives us the superior happiness of Krishna consciousness, in which we do not have to fall into Frollo consciousness, but we could be Krishna conscious. And you see, this is a really good kirtan. They're dancing and chanting, and you see some of them. You see, he's lying on the ground there. One of them, he's lying on the ground. It's like, this is a really good kirtan. Yeah, I mean, this one of them's about to fall. See him? And the red chud, he's about to fall. So it's a really good kirtan. So yeah, we could have kirtans like that, similar like that. So, all right. Does anybody have any? That's a end. Does anybody have any question? Or I'm not sure who is first. I think both of you were okay.
Can you talk a little bit about the mechanical part of music therapy? Because I think, especially with our culture that we use so many rituals and chanting and mantras, and then it starts to become like, okay, here's another mom, and I see that. And so can you talk a little bit more how we don't fall into that mechanical, like, process?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's very easy to fall into that rut or into that habit of just doing things mechanically. But we should try to understand with our intelligence that we shouldn't do that. It's not really good. Just like if somebody you're in a relationship with, like let's just say let's say you have a family and it's somebody's turn to cook dinner, and it's just like really mechanical. They're like, or let's say it's even like,
The same food over and over.
well, let's say that they just like get the cheapest TV dinner available, frozen TV dinner. I was actually talking to some young devotees and from an Indian family. I said, "Have you ever had a TV dinner before?" And they're like, "No, we never had a TV dinner." I was like, "Yeah, it's very." I wasn't advising them to have it, but just like this frozen, cheap frozen, just throw it in the microwave. Make sure you poke some holes in the plastic. A question may come. He was driving all day. The question may come. Maybe we're doing things mechanically because we don't feel that love there, and that could be a reason. But how are we supposed to develop that love or that affection? I guess it's a point of argument that people have. Even nowadays, people in India, they have arranged marriage.
Mhm.
So, for example, I was talking with one of my friends. They're like in their 30s. They got married when they were they're in their late 30s. I think they both got married when they're in their early 30s. So they've been married for about 10 years. So I asked them, I said, how long did you two speak? I asked them, how many times did you meet before you got married? Guess how many times they met? No, I think it was like twice. And then I said, how long did you speak before you got married? And they said, about 30 minutes. I said, really? And then they said that also they spoke, and there was people in the room also. It was like at a party. They spoke for 30 minutes together. Of course, these marriages are based on astrological readings, on certain things like that, similarities. One of my friends were going to get married, and they were a couple, and they got their astrology read. And, the astrologer said, yeah, it's not looking so good. So then they went to the next astrologer, and he's kind of said the same thing. And then they went to the third one. They said, yeah, it could work. So they went with the third one. They got married. Yeah, they've been married. They're happily married. So Krishna consciousness, right? So, but I'm bringing this up because the idea in that system is that they don't really love each other automatically. There's some affection there, there's some attraction there, but it's not that they both feel that they have like deep love, like automatically. But the idea is that by spending time together, by engaging in Krishna consciousness together, by having a family together, and so on, by sharing their life together over time, they develop that love for each other. So when we relate, and there's something to that actually. That's my conviction. If we relate that to Krishna consciousness, sometimes people do things mechanically because the love may not be there, or they may not be feeling it all the time. So they're like, all right, well, I just should do it mechanically. But just because the love is not there fully, or just because we're not feeling the full happiness of Krishna consciousness, doesn't mean we should do it mechanically. It means that we should try harder to express that. We should try still. Okay, due to my own lack of Krishna consciousness, due to my own lack of spiritual advancement, I'm not feeling the full love of Krishna. I'm not feeling enthusiastic. I'm not really feeling it. But okay, let me try anyways. Let me try. Let me try to serve Krishna. And then with that trying over a prolonged period of time, we will feel that more and more. And we'll become more and more advanced in that way. But if we just fall into that mechanics of things, then it's just mechanical. So we need to understand with our intelligence the importance of not doing things mechanically. That's one. And two, we should understand that it may take some time. So we should we need to be very patient and enthusiastic because it's going to take some time. And we should understand that this is how Krishna is reciprocating with us. In other words, we may not be feeling Krishna's reciprocation, but that's how he's reciprocating with us, by not apparently reciprocating with us. He's trying to develop our enthusiasm. There was one person in Vrindavan, he would bring in a big plate of fruit. He was from Argentina. And he would actually dance in and like spin around with the fruits. So does that, do you have any further?
No, that helps.
So I'd say we have to understand with our intelligence, we have to try and not give up, and understand that just because we don't feel the love, doesn't mean we should do things mechanically, but we could do things out of duty because we know it's good for us, and then gradually it becomes more real in the sense that we're feeling something more. Yeah. Or as Srila Prabhupada would say, if you don't feel ecstasy in the kirtan, dance. Or as one of his disciples said, they asked him, "Oh, you're so enthusiastic." And he said, "Actually, sometimes I don't feel enthusiastic, but I just act enthusiastic. And then when the devotees, they see me acting enthusiastic, then they become enthusiastic. And then when I see them enthusiastic, then I really become enthusiastic." So it's like that feeding off of the energy. You had something?
Yeah, what happened in the Disney version of the story? I've never seen it.
Oh, you never saw
I
it?
never saw it.
Oh, really?
I know the priest falls, that's the only scene I've ever seen.
Oh, in Disney Falls, huh?
So he does get his comeuppance.
Oh, it's been a while. I watched it probably a week ago. Just joking. It's been a while. Probably much longer than that. 25 years ago. But I don't really remember actually. I remember maybe. I don't think Esmeralda dies. I don't think Quasimodo dies. I think there's some type of happily ever after.
I have a question.
Yes.
So what if we find ourselves with the Fraldo? What do we do?
Oh, yeah.
we're in that position, we're in the church, what if we find ourselves in the Frollo?
Like a frollo in the temple?
Frollo, yeah, what do we throw them out the window, or?
Jump to conclusions?
Well, if someone falls out a window, you're gonna do something, one-story window. I say it was Balarama's idea.
That's
We won't
funny.
get very hurt.
No frollos in the temple.
No Frollo.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, like, on a serious level, like, sometimes we find ourselves with,
Frollo tendencies?
like, we may find ourselves with Frollo tendencies, or we may find ourselves dealing with a Frollo in our organization. What do we do? How do we deal with that?
Yeah. How do we deal with that? Frollo in the organization? There's one story that Srila Prabhupada says. He says that, or one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, he says, he gave a remembrance. He said that he wasn't happy with what was going on in the organization, and he went to Srila Prabhupada and he was complaining about it. And then Srila Prabhupada told him, well, all of these managers, they're called the GBC, all the managers, the GBC, they made the decision. So they collectively made this decision. So you just have to accept it. And then he said, and if there's a mistake, then over time, it will be rectified. Krishna will rectify the mistake. So then this devotee, he was wondering in his mind, he was like thinking in his mind, he's like, yeah, but when is that going to happen? And then he was bowing down to his teacher, Srila Prabhupada, and he was, when is that going to happen? Prabhupada, read his mind. And then Srila Prabhupada, he put his hand on the desk and he pointed at him and he said, but not in your time, in Krishna's time. So that's there. That's one side of it. But sometimes, we give people a chance once, twice, 3 times. So many chances, and sometimes people are it's actually better for them to move on. So that's a decision of the management to ask somebody to move on. There was a fellow named Crazy Peter, that's what the devotees used to call him.
Yeah.
He used to, in the lobby, he would like lay down and like read books, and just kind of a eccentric fellow. And the devotees really didn't like that. So they wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada, and they were complaining about him. And then Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter back. And one of the things that jumped out of the letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote was, "What's the matter? Can't you tolerate?" So the devotees just let him stay. And then many years later, Giriraj Swami was going to LA, and he saw this Crazy Peter in the temple room. You haven't seen him for 30 years, he said. And they asked a devotee, is that Crazy Peter? And the devotee said, oh, you mean Kushakrata? And then Giriraj Swami said, oh, Kushakrata. You mean Kushakrata, the one who's like hundreds of Sanskrit books and who's like nourishing the whole spiritual society? And they said, yes, that's Kushakrata.
Wow.
So due to Srila Prabhupada's being very kind to him, he actually stayed around and he made a really big contribution. So that's there, but these things have to be balanced. And that's left to the management, that's what they have to deal with. Yes.
He had a question before me.
Yes.
I think you covered it.
Okay. Are you sure?
No, because I don't remember the question.
Okay.
So I'm sure you covered it.
Okay. Thank you.
I was just struck by your telling of that story, the original story, because it has all those elements of lust, anger, greed, delusion, madness. I mean, everything is there.
It's
But I was
true.
especially struck by how pernicious envy is in the spiritual life, but even in this case, he envied her so much. Envy is just not just wanting her, but he'd so objectified her that he was okay with her being framed for a murder. Because she was just for his satisfaction. She had no value apart from that. And he so didn't want anyone. So the aspect of envy that I don't just want what someone else has, I don't want them to have it or anyone else to have it. How pernicious that is in our spiritual life. And that he was fine with her being executed, no problem.
Yeah.
Because then no one can have her if I can have her.
Yeah.
What's the pernicious?
Pernicious just means it's a very kind of subtle, certain vices in our life can be so subtle the way they degrade us. They don't seem like they're so serious. But someone takes away a foundation.
Yeah.
But anyway, can you speak more about envy in the spiritual life, or how dangerous that can be to us?
Yeah. Envy is envy is one of the enemies of the heart. There's 6 enemies. And actually these enemies are said to be, they're described to be like thugs, gangsters, thugs. And it says that when you're going down the road of bhakti, the road of Krishna consciousness, these thugs come out. They can come out. And they're personified, selfishness, anger, greed, envy, and they try to rob you, or they try to rob us of our Krishna consciousness. And Raghunath Das Goswami, one of our teachers, they give their attention to, they take it as like a comfort, kind of something to distract the mind from whatever. So, when difficulties come, we have an option. We have free will. And the option is, do I want to just, divert my attention to this things of this world, take shelter of things of this world, or do I want to take shelter of Krishna, take shelter of God? So sometimes it might be difficult to take shelter of Krishna. So we take shelter of other things, but the idea is to try to train ourselves to take shelter of the holy name of Krishna and Krishna more and more and more. So we have to practice that. It may not come automatically. But it's possible, and that's the best option, actually.
There are a lot of Krishna apps. Which is
That's true.
a win-win situation.
That's true. You take shelter of the Krishna apps. That's why we practice in the morning. We chant. We engage in spiritual life because we're practicing, thinking in the right way. And then later, when the difficulties come, we're like ready. It's like, all right, I've been practicing for this. It's kind of like if somebody's going to like war. There's training going on. They're not just like, sitting around smoking hookah or something. There's training going on. And then when it comes time, they're ready. So similarly like that, the chanting, all these things, there's going to be difficulty, so then when they come, we're ready. So that's also a give peace a chance, give Krishna a chance.
So it's like the musical connection in the songs really helps amplify the connection to Krishna, right?
Yeah, that's the best method, kirtan. Yeah, our teacher Srila Prabhupada said, the safest place in the world, it's not this country, not that country, not here, not there. The safest place is kirtan. That's what he said.
If you're going to go, that would be the way to go, right?
Kirtan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're there, that's where you are, then,
Yeah.
no matter what happens to you.
The bombs were falling in Calcutta when our teacher, Srila Prabhupada, was a householder. And a lot of people were evacuating the city, but he didn't leave. Japanese were bombing. And he was just making puris. Says he was just making puris for Krishna, or fried bread. He was just chanting Hare Krishna. And he was saying that, okay, well, he was seeing Krishna, seeing that whatever happens is in the hand of Krishna. Of course, this has to be balanced, things like that, but we could see Krishna in very difficult circumstances. Yeah.
I'm gonna say that in regards to Oliver's question, that the more we have kind of an idea of our identity, that I am a soul and I'm a servant of spiritual God, I'm a servant of God, then it becomes easier to have focus, like our priorities are more situated and fixed upon that spiritual goal of life, rather than getting distracted or letting myself become overwhelmed by the temporary emotions. There's some temporary emotions. We'll feel angry, we'll feel happy, we'll feel sad, but I'm not letting that get in the way of my mission. If my mission is just to enjoy my senses, then anytime there's a challenge in that, I'm going to be upset. When my mission is spiritual, now I have a focus, and because of that, I easily cross beyond any, upheavals that happen.
Therefore, we say Goswami, to control the senses, and then not so disturbed by things. I knew one girl, God bless her. She had these new white pants she was wearing. I remember she dropped some soda on them or something. There's the whole soda thing. And it was just like might as well be like a partial devastation of the universe. It's a real meltdown. But we can't let everything bother us, or else it's just very difficult. The heat bothers us. Everything just bothers us, and then we're just really bothered. But that's not really fun. I don't think it's fun. So.
I have a little story for you that kind of puts that into perspective. So we stopped in Philly before we went to Maya for this January, and my sister had just gotten a electric vehicle. So we're driving. I don't know if you've ever been to the East Coast, but it's very hectic there. Traffic is terrible.
Yeah.
We're driving on the turnpike going to the temple in New Jersey, and all of a sudden we're out of charge. And she's like going like 20 miles an hour in an 80, like,
really?
like, oh my God. And so we pull over, and now it's starting to snow.
Oh, really?
We don't have coats. We're going to Mayapur, like, we don't need coats.
Oh, wow.
And we're just stuck there, and then the toll was like, oh, it's gonna be 4 hours. And we're like, oh. We were hungry, thirsty, had to use the restroom, and it was snowing. And Bala was in the backseat, like, chance. I was like, let's do a little gratitude. Like, because what are you supposed to do? You can either really get angry and start yelling at my sister for not charging the vehicle, or you find some time and you're just like, okay, at least we're here together. We just came through the temple. We just saw all these beautiful. And it was kind of, at least it was after the temple.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's important to try to see things in a little bit of a humorous light also. Like Srila Prabhupada, he was traveling, I think, to Africa or coming back from Africa, but he didn't have a particular certificate. I think it's that
Yellow fever.
Yellow fever. So then they just put him in quarantine there at the airport. I think it was for more than a week. Really strange, actually. And then he said, all right, well, I have some letters to catch up on. And we just kind of like, just tried to utilize that time in the best way. They locked me in our Krishna lounge for 2 weeks, some years ago. I wasn't sick, but there was some idea I was sick. And so I just thought to myself, I said, all right, well, I'm going to chant more. And I finished, some reading material in there. And I started writing a book. In jail, might as well write a book, right? So that was a start in the book that I finished, not at that time, but later.
As TP is that you have that policy in place now. We changed the rules.
Did we change the rules to San Diego?
Yeah, now that you're the boss.
Oh, I see.
You still have that rule in place of quarantine someone?
No. I mean, we went quarantine again now. Yeah, maybe I will. All right, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.